when he came up here to get his furniture and his dog, Haley. His roommate found him dead in the bathroom of their apartment. The autopsy showed the cause of death is cocaine laced with fentanyl, the fentanyl being the culprit. We met with our congressman in the fall, and he's trying to do what he can to help stop this horrible epidemic that's robbing us of our young men and women. There's a mother who lives nearby in Jamestown who lost 2 sons within 6 months of each other. My friend Deb's son was also into drugs, but he's in jail. And she tells me, as sad and horrible as that is, she still has him. We can't bring Andrew back, but if we can save others, this will be worth it. 2 weeks ago, Leighton Holiday, a 17-year-old here in Raleigh, was found dead by his dad, a pastor. It seemed like Leighton was moving in the right direction, but he had overdosed on a mixture of drugs. This is a societal epidemic and impacts your justice system. But again, think about the role of the court. We have our laws. We apply them fairly and impartially. And there are consequences for the decisions that people make. That one person, whether it was Andrew or Leighton, or whether it is the cases that we see so frequently with termination of parental rights, where the mom and or the dad are willing to do anything to get their drugs. We had a case from Asheville where the parents were selling their 3-year-old daughter to get money for drugs. I was with some probation officers a week ago who told me of going into a home that prior week, a 6-month-old and an 18-month-old covered in roaches, no adult in the house, no changing materials, no food for these kids. The parents are so fixated on getting their next high, getting their drugs, that these children suffer. The societal consequences are huge. Where do people get money for their drugs? That's where most of the breaking and enterings occur. How about the violent crimes? People are robbing other people. People think drug dealers have money, which they may, and so they rob them. So many of the shootings are, quote, gang-related, but it's really drug-related, having to do with getting money, drugs, or both. We recently had a case out of Winston-Salem where 4 people from one gang came in and pretty much just shot every member of a household, and a full household, husband, wife, kids. Now everybody's involved in the drug trade except for the kids, maybe not the wife. They just executed all these people. The cost of drugs, tremendous. And then that's not even thinking about all the spike, as we saw from Dr. Clater, about the number of babies that are born addicted to drugs. It's money, and then the reach of all the different illegal activities that go on connected with that. So how can the justice system react and respond? Recently, the federal government, the Eastern District of North Carolina, indicted and convicted Dr. Donovan Dave Dixon, 51 years old, of Fayetteville. Dr. Dixon had been working with drug dealers. And the drug dealers would go among the community. They'd find names of people. Dr. Dixon would put those on the prescriptions, and then drug dealer would sell the prescriptions. Now they found this because the 4 pharmacies in Robson County were actually dispersing more drugs than just about any other community in North Carolina. And they figured, well, that doesn't fit the population, so what can we do? Dr. Dixon pled not guilty. The trial proceeded. He was found guilty, and he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. But the thing that the judicial system can never do is restore life, restore families, restore the individuals that have been devastated by that type of thing. It was alluded to earlier about the litigation involving Purdue Pharma. So in the early 2000s, I guess, Purdue Pharma had produced or created this drug, Oxycontin, that has a time-release formula of oxycodone. And Purdue Pharma marketed this as being less addictive, even though there were no studies apparently to support that. In 2007, the company and the management pled guilty to both civil and criminal charges with regard to the product. They paid almost $650 million in fines, and now they are being sued again by about 30 attorneys general, saying that Purdue Pharma continues to falsely market Oxycontin. Criminal and civil potential liability. With regard to what does the justice system do with the individuals that come before us, possessing drugs is still illegal. Now, there are certain marijuana possessions that would be misdemeanors in North Carolina, but generally speaking, any of the opioids are going to be felonies. A simple possession is a felony. Let me tell you about what that process looks like and how the criminal justice system is not the right answer for individuals like Andrew or Leighton. Somebody gets, let's say that the police get a tip, or they get someone who is an informant, often an informant, somebody who has been arrested for possession. They say, so-and-so sold it to me. Let's say they arrest that person. And that person, let's say, as many are addicted. Well, they're going to go into a county jail system. That system does not have the treatment options of prison. I mean, this sounds strange, but for those that care about the individual, you want them to quickly get into the state system if they're going to do jail time, because they can get treatment in the state system, but the county jails don't have that kind of treatment options. Well, often these are low priority crimes, and people can stay for a period of time in jail awaiting their trials. Often these folks, particularly first offenders or those that didn't do any violent crimes in connection with their drug use or didn't steal, that kind of thing, more than likely they're going to get some type of probation, supervised being out in the community. But again, nobody's treating the underlying problem. Nobody's treating this hole that these people have in their lives that has caused them to begin to seek this alternative reality. And then I understand your brain gets kind of reprogrammed, and the whole thing spirals out of control. So I think we have to appreciate the limitations that we have with regard to the individual, or the court system has with regard to the individual. Now, we're trying a whole bunch of different things across the state, but there is, at this point, there's not a statewide program. There's been a bill introduced, but although we have what's called a unified court system, we have 9 counties with a family drug court. We have 15 counties that have adult drug treatment court. We have 3 counties that have youth drug treatment court. We have 6 counties that have DWI treatment court. We have 6 counties with mental health court and 4 counties with veteran treatment court. So that's a total of 43 of our 100 counties have some type of specialty court that's paid for locally through local tax dollars as opposed to being paid for by the state. So what happens if somebody goes to this type of diversion court? Well, they need to get treatment. Who's supplying the treatment? I hope that Christian community will do so. I haven't looked at the statistics of what types of programs can be successful with regard to drug treatment. I have looked with regard to prison situations and recidivism rates. And basically, it's the Christian-based programs that have the impact because you're not changing externalities, you're changing the heart. And whereas those programs are not 100% effective, they're much more effective than any of the humanism-based programs that seek to modify behavior without truly changing the heart. The impact of these things, as I've mentioned, not just the criminal cases, the termination of parental rights cases, of course, families breaking up, divorce rates, husbands or wives having to endure the pain of watching your spouse deal with this addiction and then the family breaking up. Of course, juvenile court. One of the things, and so Dr. Plater mentioned the STOP Act. And one of the things that as a physician, I would be very hopeful or very much desirous to follow that is the protection from civil liability. We haven't begun to see where civil liability with regard to medications, where that's going to end up. Right now, like I mentioned, big pharmacy. But recently we had a case where a family or a husband and wife celebrating their 10th anniversary went to a hotel in Asheville. The husband and the wife, between them, had, well, I guess maybe 20 or 22 drinks. And she went up to the room that night with some help and was found dead the next morning. The husband sued the hotel saying you should have stopped her from drinking. And ultimately, my court ruled that that's contributory negligence. I mean, she was the one who ordered the drinks. She was the one who drank the drinks. But nonetheless, it was the court said it was a very close case. And certainly as physicians, you prescribe what you think to be best for the patient. The patient becomes addicted. The patient commits suicide. The patient has other ill effects from the medication with regard to addiction issues. Is there potential liability? And again, as a former attorney, recovering attorney, who used to defend doctors in med-mal cases, the safe harbor, I mean, there's a lot of great reasons to prescribe based on the criteria of the STOP Act, but certainly the protection from civil liability, I think, is significant. I want to be sure to leave some time for questions. The point that I'm trying to make is ultimately when people go through the criminal or civil justice system, there's laws, and those laws get applied fairly, impartially to everybody. Now, we care about the individuals. just as you do, but the rule of law is the rule of law. And it's so important that we, again, through a multidisciplinary approach, try to address the underlying things that are causing folks to turn to or to seek an altered reality. Okay? The studies I indicated say this about my profession. I looked at y'all's profession. Y'all also have a heightened suicide rate. But if you're a person, just an average person out there, your addiction rate is 11%. If you go into a law school, you step foot into that law school, your addiction, substance abuse rate goes to 33%. 1 in 3. Now again, there's a lot of reasons for that. Fear of missing out is an important one. All the student debt that's getting piled on, that's an important one. The uncertainty in the career that law students choose, but frankly, that med students choose. You can do the precise textbook procedure and the person dies. You can maybe didn't quite do it right and the person has a miraculous recovery. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, God is God and God is sovereign. But these young people are entering a profession where they'll sit down with somebody, maybe a doctor, who says, hey, I want to know about this area of the law or that area of the law. And you folks are probably used to scientific tests and probabilities and all that kind of thing. And the lawyer will say, well, I think this is the way it's going to be. I mean, hey, I don't want this think stuff. I want to know what's going to happen. Well, I can't know until the North Carolina Supreme Court, 4 justices say this is what the law is. Or if it's a federal issue, 5 justices say this is what the law is. I can give you my best guess. Now, frankly, that's one of my jobs, is to be sure that young lawyers, all lawyers, when they sit down with their clients, can say with some degree of certainty, this is what the law is, and this is the way it's going to be. But we live in gray. And we live with this natural uncertainty with regard to, did I consider all the factors in our differential diagnosis as we look at the legal question before us? And did I give the proper counsel? That creates a lot of tension. And then you add to that, we have an adversary system. Now, all you doctors, you guys all get along great. I get that, you know. But in the law, we have representing 2 different sides. And what I'm seeing more and more of is, instead of counselors at law who understand that the legal issues may be there, but that doesn't make one side good and one side bad, just like our political world, more and more people, young people in particular, are over-identifying with their client. So their client comes in, they tell them their side of the story. Proverbs says, hey, don't be quick to judgment. One side speaks and you think that's right, and you hear the other side. As I tell young lawyers, your case never looks as good as the first time you sit down with that client and hear the story, and then you take that first deposition and you realize, oh my goodness, why didn't you tell me that? But we see more and more of folks who say, okay, I represent this person, I think their cause is righteous, therefore I'll wear a white hat, and you represent the other side, you must wear a black hat, I'm good, you're bad, and there's this divide, which frankly just makes the tension of discovery and working through a case all that much more. So when you look at, walk into a law school through age about 35, our substance abuse percentages, Betty Ford's study from 2016 in conjunction with the ABA, is 33%. Now, after age 35, it becomes 22%, with kind of the normal stress, wear and tear on lawyers. I'm actually only 35 years old, but you know, all the wear and tear, I'm just kidding, of course. I'm a real old guy. So, the pressures of society should make us think, okay, what kind of questions are people asking that they can't find answers to that lead them to alter reality. So when I sit down with young law students, as I do frequently, I'll say, I love practicing law. I mean, I am so grateful to have a profession where I don't have to touch people all day. I'm just kidding, okay? I'm just kidding. I'm grateful that I am part of a profession that seeks truth with the end to be justice. I'm grateful for that. But as much as I enjoy the law, there are three basic questions that every human being asks that law, your profession, will not answer. Who am I? How did I get here? Am I just a cosmic accident that's going to whoop on the radar screen and then be gone? And how should I live? I mean, yeah, I got my professional code of ethics, okay, that's kind of a foundation or a baseline for me and my profession, but with regard to how I would relate to my spouse or my neighbors, is there a God, and how do I relate to Him? How does that work? Who am I? Why am I here? And what happens when I die? This morning, and I teach a young adult Sunday school class. I'm getting ready for that tomorrow, and I get to teach one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. It starts off like this. Jesus says, don't worry, be happy. Jesus says, let not your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house it's huge. There's room for everybody. And I'm up there getting it ready for you. We have visitors from out of town. My wife's scurrying all around the house, getting this ready, getting that. I'm thinking, Jesus, He's been up there now 2,000 years fixing this place for us. It's going to be unimaginable. And He says, if I'm there, I'm going to take you to be with me. He says, I'm the way, the truth, capital T truth. My profession seeks little t truth, as does yours, because that's how you treat people. Try to truthfully figure out what's going on. I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. What a great message we have for a world that needs to hear that. For a world that is, frankly, looking for love in all the wrong places. Looking for happiness and fulfillment in all the wrong places. If money and power and being cool, if all that brought fulfillment, then why do we see every day some movie star who's got all those things overdosing by themselves in a motel, hotel room somewhere? It doesn't work. Only that personal relationship with Jesus. And I know each of you as influencers within your respective communities, as we first got to live love. Jesus said it this way. He said, a new commandment I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, He just washed their feet. Love one another. The whole world will know you're my disciples if you love one another. We got to start out with that foundation.